Welcome back to my channel. It is now week 6 of the NFL season. In today's video, I will be breaking down the game between the Philadelphia Eagles and the Cleveland Browns. I will let you know everything you could possibly need to know going into this game, and at the end, I'll share who I think will win. Starting off, I'll give a brief preview of each team. They each have been a disappointment for what was thought to be a promising year of football. The Eagles are 2-2, but if you ask any Eagles fan, you would think they are 0-16.
Let's see your everything is okay face.
The Eagles offense has turned the ball over non-stop, and the Eagles defensive line has had no pressure throughout the season. That said, they are 2-2, and they really should be 3-1. The Browns, on the other hand, are 1-4. Their offense has been one of the worst in the NFL, and their defense is much worse than it was in prior years. Each of these teams are 2 wins behind first place in their division.
Playoffs? I just hope we can win a game.
And need this win. Up next is the injuries. Surprisingly, the Eagles' injuries actually are not looking that bad. A.J. Brown, the Eagles' best wide receiver, got hurt after week 1 and missed the previous 3 games. And then there were 2 players with concussions, and they were stars. It was Devontae Smith and Lane Johnson, who missed last week. All of them should be coming back. If you look at the Eagles' injury report, it looks pretty good. It was a lot of people full practice. The only person who had limited practice was Nakobe Dean, the linebacker, which is a little concerning, but he is supposed to play. The Browns, on the other hand, they look like the hospital ward at this point. Their injury report is massive. So I'm only going to talk about the people who did not participate in practice, who are, I guess, important. Because some of these players, except for the diehard Browns fans, have even heard of them. So, first off, Myles Garrett, the best player on the Browns, has had an Achilles/ankle injury for a few weeks. He did not practice. He hasn't been practicing the past few weeks. I would guess he plays, but of course he's going to be playing hurt. But he did not practice on Wednesday, so that is notable. Amari Cooper took a rest day, which is pretty typical. David Njoku, so their tight end just got back from one injury, and then in the game this Sunday got hurt with another injury, so I would not be surprised if he misses some times. There are a few offensive linemen that were not able to participate. And then finally, Denzel Ward, one of their better corners, did not practice. So it is a lot of injuries all across the board. It could affect the offense and the defense this week. It's a little too early to tell. And honestly, you might not know until right before the game starts, because that's just kind of how injuries are these days. But going into this game, I would say the Eagles look a lot healthier than the Browns. Now that I've got that out of the way, I'm going to do the matchup of the Eagles offense versus the Browns defense. Going into this year, we thought this would be an amazing matchup between a top 3 Eagles offense and a top 3 Browns defense. It turns out so far, the Eagles don't have a top 3 offense and the Browns don't have a top 3 defense. So maybe it will seem to match up a little bit. Jalen Hurts has had a very shaky season so far this year. I think fans have overreacted a little bit. Maybe the bye week has just calmed me down, but he has looked decent, and then he turns the ball over. He's turned the ball over way too much, a ridiculous amount, especially in the red zone. But then the rest of the game he's playing well, so I don't know how to deal with that. It seems like if he can just get it under control, reel it in, then he will be fine. The offensive line for the Eagles has been pretty good for this season. It has taken a small step back without Jason Kelce, but honestly, I'm pretty happy with the offensive line. Other than in the Bucs game, I didn't think they did a very good job in that one specifically, but they have always had problems there. For the receivers, of course, Goddard's there, but that's not who you really care about. Who you really care about is A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith, who finally are back. We could see the Eagles offense once again. We haven't seen it since week 1, where they scored over 20 points within 2 quarters against the Packers, just to lit them up. And if we can see that come back, this Eagles team could be all fixed. This could really be a get-right game. And then finally, the best players on the Eagles offense this season has been Saquan Barkely. He's been the best running back in the NFL. The Eagles haven't used him enough, but he has been absolutely amazing, crushing 50-yard runs and any needed 5 or 6-yard runs alike. And he has been useful in the passing game when utilized. He's probably the best player on the Eagles offense so far this year. Not probably, definitely he has been. Now to the Browns side of the ball. So of course their defensive line, especially if Myles Garrett plays, is loaded with talent, and they do have Jim Schwartz, who is a very good defensive coordinator. They could easily do the Bucs type of thing where they get a lot of pressure to Jalen Hurts and he just doesn't know how to deal with it. However, in the games previous to that, Jalen Hurts had been dealing with the blitz rather well. But this could be a really telling matchup between the Browns' excellent defensive line and the Eagles' excellent offensive line. We'll see. Thankfully, Lane Johnson is back. Hopefully, him and Mailata can ward off Myles Garrett. But this will be a tough one. So far this year, the Browns' defense has been a lot better against the pass than they have been against the run, so you could see some burst plays from Saquon Barkley against this Browns defense. Especially since this year, the Browns are letting up a lot of 10-plus yard rushes that Saquon specializes in. You do also have to wonder if maybe the Browns are just better against passing because teams run the ball against them as they're blowing them out. So you do have to think about that. But overall, the secondary of the Browns is rather deep. It's full of talent, and they could guard the Eagles receivers as long as their defensive line gets some pressure. That will be the whole story on this side of the ball. Can the Browns cause turnovers against Jalen Hurts, who has been turning the ball over? And can they get some sacks against Jalen Hurts, who loves to get sacked? So that will decide, honestly, the whole game, I think. But as an overview, the Eagles' offense has been rather disappointing, and the Browns' defense also has been a bit disappointing. So one will have to come out on top, and we might see the same thing on the other side of the ball. So going with the Browns' offense, this is maybe the worst offense in the NFL so far. Deshaun Watson looks like one of the worst quarterbacks in the NFL. And he loves to get sacked. He's been sacked over 20 times. No one else is anywhere near him. But on the other side of the ball, the Eagles' defensive line has got almost no pressure, especially from the edges. This is kind of a one team is bad, the other team is bad, who can be worse type matchup. But if the Eagles' defensive line can't get pressure against Deshaun Watson, then they can't get pressure against anybody. And on the other side, if Deshaun Watson can't succeed against this Eagles' defensive line, then he can't succeed against anyone. That is, of course, unless Jalen Carter decides he really wants to play this week, because when he decides he is ready, he's one of the best players in the NFL. The problem is he only puts in 100% effort about half the time, it seems like, so far. And he is a defensive tackle, so he doesn't get quite the same amount of sacks as one of the players on the edge. As far as receivers go, there is Amari Cooper, who is a very good wide receiver. Njoku is injured, of course. I think he's going to miss this game. And Jerry Jeudy is on the team as well. I don't think he's been that great, but he is notable. That will match up. I think the Eagles' corners have a decent chance at stopping them. I think Quinyon Mitchell and Slay can match up fairly well against these people. And if I had to pick what's better on the Browns, their passing or their running, it is their running. Their running game has been decent, but not great. It is still not a good rushing offense. The Browns are only putting up 15 points a game as a whole. So while their rushing is better, it is still the 6th worst in the NFL. They're only putting up 240 yards per game. On the other side, the Ravens are putting up 450 yards per game, for some context. Or the Eagles are putting up 365 yards per game. So, this Browns offense should be terrible. But the Eagles defense has struggled mightily. So honestly, one side has to break. So now that I kind of went through that general matchup, what does Vegas think will happen? So Vegas has the Eagles as a 9-point favorite, which is huge. A normal NFL game is about 3 to 4 points. So they think the Eagles are going to win by a ton. This should be an easy, relaxing victory for the Eagles. But if you watch the Eagles, you know they hate those. The Eagles never win by a lot of points in a relaxing victory. They love stressful victories or stressful losses. How can the Eagles win is, I would say, most of the ways. They have a more talented offense, and their defense should be able to stop a pitiful Browns offense. How would the Browns win is one of two ways. Deshaun Watson figures it out and the Eagles don't get any pressure, so their offense looks legitimate, or their defensive line just overwhelms Jalen Hurts and there are a lot of turnovers, which leads to short fields, leading to easy points. Overall, what do I think will happen? I think the Eagles are going to win. I am an Eagles fan, so there's bias, but I think the Eagles are going to win 31-17. This is not the old Browns defense that's going to hold you to 10 points. It's just not the same. They've had some injuries, and the pressure their offense is putting them on, it's hard to compete with. And then their offense, as I've said, just can't put up any points. So what are your thoughts on the game? I think it should be an Eagles victory, hopefully, but who knows? Whichever team loses this game is really going to have a disastrous start to their season. But anyways, leave your thoughts down below. Like, subscribe, and comment, as I said. See ya.